Well, hey, Doina, how are you?
I'm good, Lynette. How are you?
Good. Well, hey, listen, I am super excited to have you on the show today. First off, This is 50, Freedom Through Passions is where I interview women who are in their 50s, who are killing it, or who are starting their side hustle and figuring it all out. I know you're not quite 50. You're a few lovely years away from it. But I wanted to have you on the show because you and I have worked together in the past. You are the founder and CEO of VOLUTIon, which is a non-for-profit for helping underserved youth girls to get into the field of STEM. I want you to go through a little bit of that. But we met because I think a mutual friend, you were looking for some strategy work. And I came in and I facilitated
yes.
I facilitated your board through a strategy session for the sort of year planning. And I just thought, wow, what an amazing woman you are. You have such a great story and it's important to share it. I also wanted to bring you on because non-for-profits tend to be something that when we get into our 50s, 60s, 70s, we want to start, fulfilling a little bit more for purpose. And we start to sometimes look towards a non-for-profit for doing that. So I want you to share a little bit of insight on what it's like to be part of a non-for-profit, for you particularly starting one. But you are absolutely amazing. You've been at it for 10 years. I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Tell us about Doina and tell us about VOLUTIon.
Well, thank you so much, Annette. And let me start by saying how amazing I think that what you do is also great, because we hear a lot of this, 30 under 30, even like 35. I usually, as a woman, once you hit 30, it's kind of basically almost over. It feels like it. And for you to start what you're doing for women 50 and up, it's amazing because, we need support all through our lives, right? This is great what you do. So yes, thank you for that. Because when I'm going to get 50, so thank you. But anyways, with that say, let me share my story a little bit so I can start with that, because I think that actually goes into how and why VOLUTIon exists. I came to Canada from Romania when I was 19, and I came here with barely any English. I'm still learning English 28 years later. So I'm still like, what does that mean? But with all of that, when I come into Canada, I came from a better life, right? As an immigrant, we come here for a better life. And I've had some barriers, I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a network. I was on the streets. I literally, I was homeless 10 months after I came to Canada. I had to sleep on somebody's floor. They tried to figure out like even education and what do I do in this country? So to navigate my way and to figure out what I want to do, it was a bit hard. So I had a bit of setbacks because of that reason. But still, I managed to learn. I feel like all of those barriers, the setbacks, made me stronger. And all of that is true when they say that everything happens for a reason, right? So all of those things that I had to figure out, it helped me understand how life works. And now, with VOLUTIon. But so, I started I worked as a hairdresser for 8 years. kind of hard to believe, but yes, I was a hairdresser.
It looks great.
I was a hairdresser. I love the profession because it allowed me to meet people and talk to people and conversate and learn about cultures, learn about people and life in general. And then I knew that when I was a kid, I've always wanted to be a teacher or lawyer. So working the hairdressing job was just to pay the bills. And eventually I said, let me just get into that, work with children. I love the law and I really wanted to understand things pertaining to women's rights, because I grew up in a country where, women were second-class citizens. Violence against women was the norm. So, this is why I came to Canada, to escape all of that. So I've had that, love for law in that area because I wanted to make the world a better place by offering opportunities to women. So I started with going into learning about childcare. So I went to this, I took this course in an adult learning center, and I worked with kids in kindergarten, and I noticed a couple of things there that really bother me. One would be that the kids that were raised by a nanny were treated with so much more, they're given so much more attention versus the kids that were raised by a single mom with 3 jobs and they were in subsidy. You know, behavior issues, you know, were treated like the kids that were acting up in a certain way, depends on where you come from, you're treated differently. So I didn't like that. I just thought, yeah, I like working with kids, but I don't like the system, you know. And so I went and looked around to figure out, how do I go to school, like to, you know, to do something about women's rights. And of course, going to law school at that time, when this happened, I was a single mom of 1 daughter. And then honestly, it took me a long time to figure out, like, how do I get a post-secondary education? Because I thought you're supposed to pay from pocket for this. I did not know that the student loan exists in Canada until 13 years after I came here. I was actually on welfare because I said, I can't do this thing anymore with, you know, with the kids and stuff. I want to figure stuff out. And so I went on welfare. I had my daughter, she was like 2 yeyears old. And so I was, you know, trying to raise her basically on my own. And when I went to welfare, I felt like I wasn't treated, like they were not giving me the information I needed, you know. It's like they were not helping me to go beyond welfare. It felt like they were wanting me to be stuck there. And I was just showing up just to show up, just because if I wouldn't show up, I wouldn't get the check, for example. And then my social worker wasn't there one time, and he was the social worker on call, and I was just having this attitude like, I'm done here with this. I'm just here because, but I need to figure shit out. I hope I'm okay. Yeah. I'm okay. I need to figure shit out, and this is not it. And so the worker was like, "You look like you don't want to be here." I'm like, "You're right. I don't. I want to go to school. I want to get an education. I want to do something with my life." And I've already had the list of schools I want to go to. I've had a list of the things that I want to do, the courses that I want to take. I've even done my research. I called potentials organizations that I would ideally like to work for and figure out like what is it that they were looking for in terms of education. So I've done my research. I was ready to go. And when I told him that, and he's like, "You can apply for OSAP." What is OSAP? And then he told me about it. And then he brought all the resources, gave it to me, and that's how I went to school. And I studied the social work with the feminist background. The program is actually called the Assaulted Women's and Children's Council Advocate Program at George Brown College in Ontario, Canada. People that don't know, it's so I studied the social work with the feminist background. I learned so much around women's rights on the global level and poverty and how women are affected by all of this. So when I finished with that, I thought, you know, I worked in other nonprofits. So I work with youth at risk. And I work with youth that just came from a legal system. You know, they were, instead of going to be charged with a crime, they were sending into these programs mandatory, so they have to take on to be, I would say, forgiven, or not have a record. And then I worked with them, and then I saw so many things, you know, that the system, again, felt like it was designed. I feel like I was in their shoes. I remember how it was for me, you know, being in the system and not being supported with what I needed, versus people were just, I mean, the program were just giving them stuff just because they wanted to look great, or we have the numbers. And so I didn't like that. And then I also work with refugee women, and I help them, you know, to integrate in Canada and give them resources and support them. And I'm like, oh my God, like it was so heartbreaking. And I work with younger kids again. I work with seniors, and it was, again, I'm like, why did I get into this? But I feel like, again, like I said earlier, I think it was all because everything happens for a reason. I needed to be in these people's shoes, you know, and to understand what it's like to be someone to benefit from the services, and someone that offers the services, like service provider and service receiver, you know. And my contract finished, and then I was an early adopter of social media. I was one of the first 100 people who have a LinkedIn account. So I'm a very curious person. You know, I don't, because I think I've been prevented from entering so many different so-called opportunities. I'm so used to figure it out on my own. Like go out there and do my research, and especially now that we have Google, go on Google, do your research, see what's out there, register for this course. Is that, what information is out there? So I've learned so much about social media. I've learned about Twitter. I learned about Facebook pages and stuff. So I created my own digital media company. And I've had some nonprofits hire me to help their staff and their clients to learn more about social media and how to be safe online and how to create a LinkedIn account to help with job search. And I'll have other professionals help me set up their LinkedIn accounts for job search. And then I had some people that wanted me to help them with more, to help them with build websites. And I was like, I don't even know how to do this. But I learned a little bit of HTML and CSS again on my own online, do my research, and try to connect with people that I guess they could help me out and things like that. Partner with some people that could do this job. I say, I could be the middle person, I just pass them on to you. And so I also, part of the learning for me was going to conferences, to learn, you are there with network with people, but also learn, whatever I need to learn from these conferences. And there was let me go back a little bit. I've had this idea in my head because I started learning a little bit more about we don't have enough women in STEM. And the job market, the industry will be, we need people that have the skills. So there could be a shortage. And I'm like, I was on welfare. I depend on food bank. I don't know if I could pay my rent. I was a new immigrant. I was someone new to Canada. And nobody said, hey, look, there's this opportunity. Instead, I was kept into a box to just kind of be there, to be the statistics that I didn't want to be part of. So I had this idea in my head about, revolution existed in my head about a year and a half before I even spoke it up, because I thought, who am I to do this? I'm not in STEM. I don't know. I just taught myself how to code the super basic HTML and CSS. I don't know this field, but I know that there were, I was a youth at risk, and there are youth at risk, and there are new immigrants, and there are people that come to this country for a better life, and they want their children at least to have a better life. But there's no match between like what's actually needed to what's actually offered, And so I thought something like this should exist for people that were like me or are like me, new immigrants, women, low income, you have marginalized. So, but it doesn't. So, but who am I to do this? I'm just Doina that studies social work, and I don't know anything about STEM. And I went to a conference, and there were 4 middle-aged white men. It was they were experts on women in STEM. Okay, the panel was about women in STEM, and they're talking about if women wants to go in STEM, nobody's really stopping them. I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, we were in STEM. Like, my daughter's in STEM, so why can't all women go in STEM? I'm like, oh my God. So then we talk about this privilege and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, I was so furious actually. And I went into my mentor's office. I left the conference right away. I went to my mentor's office, and I had this bag, and I just threw it on the couch, and I was like, you know what? I am done with this. Like I need for this to happen. And he goes, what's stopping you? And I said, well, I'm not in STEM. I don't know. Like I'm not in STEM. So, somebody in STEM should be doing this. And then he's like, well, you kind of are, because just because you didn't go to school to study this, you're running a digital marketing company. And I was like, I am? Oh, I actually am. So, and then he goes, you should do this, because if anyone is to understand why this needs to happen, it would be you, because you come with that, you understand technology, even if it's the basic, but you still understand it more than others do. But you also understand what it's like to be low income, what it's like to be a woman, what it's like to be marginalized. So maybe you should study. It's yours. And I felt like at that point it was like a permission slip. I formed the board, and then I started the organization, and the rest.
Okay, before you go any further, I'm gonna let's back up. So
yes.
Okay, so you came to Canada how long ago?
in 1994. It was
1994.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you came, you were, broke, single. Were you a single mom at the time, or
No,
were you?
I was 19 years old when I came to Canada,
19.
so I was
Okay.
youth at risk.
Youth at risk. Okay.
Already,
From Romania.
Yeah.
You came here, you have no job, you have nothing, and you are now basically living on food stamps, so to speak, and you're on social services, you're in the system, and you're really trying to make it work. And what you're realizing is like nobody's really presenting you anything kind of options like, here, take this track, here, take that track. Instead, it's just like, here's your check. And you were just sort of showing up every time, getting your check, and you're thinking, okay, I can do more.
Yes.
So you got into a couple of different fields. You got into hairdressing. You finally ended up going to school, and you then said, okay, so I'm taking social work. Did you finish your social work degree?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so you got into social work. You're working with the various different groups and people, and then you kind of left that and went into a sort of, like you said, a digital marketing company, where you started to do some social media for companies, starting to build out some websites. But you always had this desire for STEM. So tell us what, first of all, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yes.
So that is STEM for everybody that's listening.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And
I'm actually saying that because I went to an event when VOLUTION just started, and I'm talking in front of people, and I'm so nervous because, again, I'm like, who am I to talk to these people? Because they are all in STEM already. So for 20 minutes and my voice is shaking. And I said, like, oh, I wasn't as confident as I am now, because those were like early stages. And I said, any questions at the end of my talk? And somebody put their hand up, says, yes, what is STEM? And I said, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. So yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, so perfect. So, and as somebody who's come from, you came from Romania, you felt underserved, coming to Canada, and that's, you've had this sort of purpose inside of you that, you want to be able to help people when they come, immigrate to Canada, or to anywhere for that matter, from their original location, and really sort of be able to provide an opportunity for them. So you've narrowed in on building a dream out for girls between the ages of 11
and high school. So girls in high school. Girls are non-conforming youth, so they're in high school, and if they have to be low income, whether they could be immigrants, they could be BIPOC, they could be LGBTQ, indigenous. So it's but the main important thing, they shouldn't be able to afford. They cannot afford any of this programming otherwise. So that's what the organization actually for. This was my passion, because I wanted people that cannot afford something like this, or people that do not have the resources to get into this. This is the organization for them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So you decide, okay, I'm going to go all in on starting VOLUTION.
Yeah.
And so that was approximately 10 years ago when that all came about.
Yes.
And so now.
And I was low income then too. I had to borrow money to actually, I had to borrow money to register the organization. And my mom gave me $80. Thank you, Mom. She gave me $80 to actually, because I didn't have the rest. I was still.
So even 10 years ago, like 10 years ago, I mean, girls in science, technology, engineering, math, like that is like, and especially like, I remember you talking to me about girls when they hit their teenage years and high school years. They kind of get to that stage where, they're super smart, but yet they may want to not come across like that because of they're sitting there, they're dating, or they're interested in boys and makeup, and a whole different sort of, psychological aspect of things really starts to take place. So, so you start VOLUTION 10 years ago from a loan with your mom for $80, and you get started. So what's your next step? You formed a board right away, or did you just start to like, how did you get started?
Honestly, I felt like immediately this was my calling. I knew that I needed to do this. I don't know. It's like you hear people talk about this, and some people, if they've never experienced it, oh, how cliche, but it's like I knew then that I can only go forward and get this done. And nothing could stop me. The fact that I didn't have enough money to register the organization, that didn't stop me. I said, I'll figure it out. The fact that I didn't know anything about STEM, I said, I'm just going to figure it out. Then the first thing I did, I needed to form a board, because legally you have to have a board. So I formed the board, and then I went out and I said, I'm doing this. I actually started using social media to say, I want to do this. This is what I'm doing. And
But how did you come up with the program material? If you didn't know STEM, how did you know what material they? Because, talk a little bit first about her VOLUTION. So you offer specific programming for these girls to come in and actually learn how to code. They're brought in into a couple of different programs that you offer throughout the year. You've got mentors who have been previous people that have gone through the program. But how did you know what kind of curriculum to even build?
At first, actually, I had a lot of volunteers. People just jumped in. Companies, at first they wouldn't, because I'm new. I'm just coming out of nowhere, and they're like, "Who are you? You're not really, So some of those,
and you don't have a degree in any of this, and so you're like, okay, yeah, right, exactly. Well, so you had an uphill battle.
Some of the things that came to me in the beginning was like, there was a couple. One is like, where did you work? What company? And they was expecting me to work, and I'm like, nowhere. So it was a bit intimidating. I have to admit, it was a bit intimidating. But then I started to educate myself around it. And it was one incident that I had, and for me, that was like, oh, I need to do this. One, I went to, I needed funding, because I realized that I needed funding to even come up with ideas for the programs and to get things started. As a startup, you are in the DNR stage, like you do your research and, to discover, to develop things, to, market research and everything. So everyone starts there. So that was there too. And then I was talking to a couple of people and to figure out, what should I be doing? And it's like, you should have some funding, because at least if you are not getting any money, how are you going to support yourself, right? So I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I said, cool. So I'm going to this event where I found that there was an investor that was sitting on this panel, and I paid $40 for that event. And imagine, like, I had to borrow $80 from my mom well, she actually gave it to me. So that was her contribution to the organization. But then the $40 was like a lot of money for me at that time. So I went to this event and I waited in line up to talk to this guy, because he said he invests in nonprofits. So I said, great. And I went and the panel was interesting. It was, I feel like I learned a couple of things, but I went there to meet this guy, and I went in line up for I think more than half an hour. And finally I get to talk to him, and I said, I created this organization to support girls in STEM. He's like, oh yes, we need more of this. It's exciting. And then I went to say, we're supporting girls from low income. And then immediately he started like, oh, no. He goes, that's a bad idea. You're never going to make it. And I don't invest in poor people. Oh no. And I was like, but that's what nonprofits are. You support the underserved. You support people that don't have money. This is what a nonprofit is supposed to be. It's not just about making a profit. That's not what it's about. And so he's like, yeah, well, I don't invest in poor people. I was so hurt, and I thought, this is it. I'm not going to make it. This was a bad idea. I had tears in my eyes. I put my jacket on and I walked out to get the streetcar to go home. And this was a King in Spadina. For people that are from Toronto, they know what that is, like downtown. I had to take a streetcar to get the subway, to take like 2 subways to get home. And so I'm sitting there in the streetcar, and I had literally did not see anybody around me, and I had tears on my face, and I said, wow, what have I done, And maybe, he's right. But then I was like, but hold on a second. That little fire in me, when I said, I feel like I needed to do this. This was my purpose. That purpose started to, that little fire started to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought, you know what? This shows me that I can be selective who I get to work with. And I need to meet people and to be around people who see what I see. And those are the people I want to associate myself with. And that's when I started to put the word out there to say, you know what, this is what I'm doing and I need help. And I had actually early stages. I had this company called Enable Education. This woman, I actually met her at another conference, and then she goes, yeah, we build curriculums for big companies that have lots of money, but I'd love to help you out, like to volunteer, like really donate my time. And, she donated so many resources, says, I believe in what you're doing. She was a former teacher, and she goes, I believe in what I think this needs to exist. And they supported me. I had people that just said, hey, I know someone that has space. I know someone that has space. We can donate that to you. Oh, I know someone.
Okay. So I'm going to just summarize a little bit here, because your story is great. I just want to keep everybody following along with us. So we get HerVolution started with an $80 loan from your mom, or for a gift from your mother. Thank you, Mom. And you set out and you realize, okay, so I'm going to really have to draw on a community here to help me. So you go out, you get rejected a couple of times, but then you realize I still have this burning desire.
Yes.
And I love that part of you where you went inside and you said to yourself, is this still my purpose? And it is. So just because things aren't coming easy doesn't mean I really have a reason to hang up and go back to a full-time job, because sometimes people can think that when we hit up against walls and rejection, we give up, and you haven't. And so you go out and you realize how important community is, and to get the message out that you need help. So you start to draw on a community. This community starts to show up. The universe starts to deliver what you ask for, and you're asking for this help. You get a few people who could say, oh, I can do a curriculum for you. I can do this. I can do that. And then you now have some people on your board, and you've got HerVolution started.
Yes.
How did you start recruiting people into the program?
Oh, well, coming from the nonprofit sector, I knew some people in that area, and I just reached out. I reached out to organizations. I said, this is what I like to do, and is there any way that you can send some of your students? Can you share this with But the early stages, actually, I was in the mall, the Yorkdale Mall, in the Microsoft store, and literally go in the mall and said, hey, parents that had children, I said, I know you want to go shopping. Can you just leave your daughter here? She can learn something, just started, honestly, in the beginning, I just saw maybe 2 or 3 people just show up, and that's it. It wasn't.
So you started with a couple of girls that went through your program. You started to test the program, and what they needed, and getting their feedback. Okay, that's amazing. How many people now? You fast forwarding 10 years.
Yes.
How many people have gone through your programs now?
Well, I believe in the slow race win the pace. Slow pace win the race. Sorry. So
that's perfect, and I agree too.
Yes, I'm not into, because I know there are organizations out there that started after HerVolution, and now they say, oh, we have like so many people every year, and I'm like, no, we have this, like I like the smaller numbers, but overall we actually serve over 4,000, maybe almost 5,000 people in the GTA. And those are direct and indirect programming. So direct programming is the programs that we actually offer, which the numbers are not as high because we have maybe 20 students. And now we actually this year increased it to 80 students in one program alone, which I'm very excited about. But
so when you say 20 students, you only allow 20 per year. It's not like you've only had 20 students go through. So the actual programming.
And actual programming will do 20 students. So just because.
Which is usually, sorry to interrupt. So it's usually in the summertime that happens. It's a 2-month program, right?
So it's just to make sure that they get enough attention, because the programs is not just about learning about STEM, but creating an environment that's safe enough for them to learn. It's not just, oh, here, I don't have time for you because there's too many of you, so I want to make sure that they get enough attention for them to feel safe and to feel good enough for them to say, yes, I want to continue this. I learned so much here that I want to continue. So that's super important. But, we also have the indirect programming, which I get to partner with other organizations. We get to run stuff together. We did a lot of that before the pandemic, but now we just do it like I do it on our own programming more than anything. We do some other partnering too, but it's far less because of, everything is virtual and it's harder and it's not, not so many conferences are happening these days. So, but we have done some of that too. So yeah.
And you've partnered with companies like Spotify. Is that
Shopify?
Shopify.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, Shopify.
Yes.
And they've been a real supporter of your program.
Yeah. Well, I started actually the first. Well, actually, so after the incident happened with that man when he said, "Oh, I don't invest in poor people," shortly after, I had Salesforce. So Salesforce actually reached out and they're like, "We'd like to partner with you." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, are they mistaken? They probably got the wrong organization. Like, I'm just new here." But we want to do some stuff together. And we've actually ended up partnering with them for 7 years continuously. So that's actually pretty amazing.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, we work with them. And then we have Shopify and then we have GM Canada. So we have some brand names that are actually partnering with us. And it's all because after the incident with that man, I decided I need to do the work for people to see that what I'm doing, it's actually worthwhile of investment. I'm not doing this just because I want to show off. And I'm not doing this because this really is with a purpose. And the purpose is to make impact, right? And impact is done if you actually, and for profits, a company, a startup is probably thinking the same thing when they think about, I need to invest in my customer so the customer is happy enough so they can come back and they can tell others. That's my focus. I want to invest in our students so they can feel comfortable enough to learn and they can continue. They go to post-secondary, they win awards, they enter, they got accepted in Harvard or Chicago Institute of Technology, they go across the border, which is like amazing. And that's the great impact that it's made. Right. So that matters.
And I think you're right. Like it's more than just learning to code.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of programs out there that, girls that code, all those different types of things. What your program really does is it attaches this sort of mentorship and community within the program itself. And that's where I think it's super awesome because these young girls get to, have like the big sister that's attached to them as well, which is absolutely wonderful.
And they get to partner with these companies because I want them to see what they could become. So we get a lot of people from the companies that we partner with. I don't even call them sponsor. We call them partner because this is what, it's like they come in and they get to, teach the girls something, or they get to coach them into something, when they become mentors and they get to learn that someday they could be this, this young women that they get to meet from these companies.
Yeah. No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's VOLUTION and the greatness that you've produced really over the past 10 years. Associated that is the brand of Doina, who, I know you've been nominated and have been the recipient of many awards.
Yeah.
Why don't you just list us maybe just a couple of awards? Because these are really the fruits of your efforts, right? So go ahead.
Okay.
Rattle off a few of them.
What's really amazing, I actually won the NCWIT award. So it's basically Aspiring Computing, the Educator Award for the Aspiring Computing because of my investment in young women in computer science, which is like, what? That's amazing. I also won Dancing Damsels. They gave me the award for providing I think it's a safer providing opportunities in the COVID-19 world to women. And I've been nominated. The organization actually got an award because of me. because of me, because I started this. So it's okay to say this. Yeah. So the organization became an award-winning organization. But I've also been nominated. I'm named the trailblazer by women in oh my God, the name just kind of over my head. Oh, hold on.
Trailblazing Award. Okay.
Trailblazer from in STEM because I create opportunities for young women that don't have opportunities in STEM. So I guess the Trailblazer, that's where it comes from. Barbie nominated me the and I am I would say, the mentor for the future generation, for them to be, to choose the career that they want to choose. So I was actually in Toys R Us across Canada. So that was
Wow, that's amazing. Barbie did this?
Barbie did this, yes. I was just,
Okay, this is awesome. That's great. And I know that you just got, is it either nominated or got the award for top 100 women?
That was on my bucket list. That was on my vision board. I want to win this award, and someone nominated me, and when they told me I won, I was just like, oh, I was in tears. You know that ugly cry that gives you a headache? That was me. Yeah. So
that's the 100 top women is the WXN.
Yeah.
Award,
so this Women Executive Network, Women Executive Network is Canada's top 100 most powerful women. So I'm considered that.
So all of the blood, sweat, and tears, literally, that you've put in through the past 10 years is really starting to pay off. And I think that you can really, absolutely, congratulations. You are amazing. So tell us, though, what is the ugly truth about a nonprofit? I mean, I saw a bit of it when I was helping you with your board, in terms of, because really you're dealing with volunteers here, right? And so when I'm thinking about potentially either starting a non-for-profit or even going to volunteer in a non-for-profit, what are some of the things that I need to kind of be aware of?
Well, first and foremost, there's never 100% funding. That's one thing. Then this is the reason why you have to deal with a lot of volunteers. So because it's hard to pay people. So that's one. But then sometimes, honestly, it's just be very aware who you allow to come in, because sometimes people come in for the wrong reasons. When you create something and becomes a brand, people want to be a part of it, but not everybody wants to do the work. They just think, oh, do you have a great looking website and everything looks amazing, and I've heard so many great things of what you've done. I want to be a part of this. And then when they see the amount of work that needs to be put in, they're like, oh, I didn't really expect that. So that could be a downsize, because it holds you back as an organization. You're trying to push the mission forward, and then you have people that are not doing what they're supposed to. And what do? Because they're volunteers. So it's kind of hard to hold people responsible sometimes, because you're not providing them a paycheck, right? So you just make sure that you bring people that actually really care about the cause that you want to push forward. They're aligned with your mission. They're aligned with your purpose. And that's super important, right? And yeah.
So when you have people on your board, you have, there's different types of boards as well. There's a working board, there's an advisory board. How have you structured HerVolution?
Well, because there was no funding. Well, the way that actually is supposed to be structured, when you don't have staff, right? When you don't have staff, you should have at least 3 or 4 people on your payroll before you can become a governance board. Because what do you govern if you don't have staff, right? And that's why, and even when you start, let's say you want to start a nonprofit, you don't come in and say, unless you have a lot of funding already and you can put from your pocket. And then it's easier to just say to form a board that is governance. And then you can hire people, and then you just you don't have to struggle so-called to get your funding. But when you start off and you don't have all the resources, you need to bring people to actually put in some of the work. So this is why it's called a working board. So, and in the beginning, I was actually advised by someone who says, you cannot have a governance board because nobody will want to support you. They want to see that people that are on your board, they have some skin in the game and they put in some of the work, so that the other, the companies, or if you apply for grants, they are going to support you as well. So put some skin in the game before they give you the support too. And the board they should be, even when you are a governance board, they still should put in. So some of them, they might not work, on your board, but they have to give you advice, and they have to do fundraising. They are responsible for the organization just as much as you that started it. So they should be contributing to the organization at all levels. Doesn't matter what form of the board you have.
That's right. Okay, cool. And so when I so I think, okay, so I'm going to go out, I'm going to start my
Yay.
non-for-profit, or I'm going to start volunteering. Just understand that it is a large part of depending on
Yeah.
volunteers. And you've got to make sure that you've got the right mindset as well, because, I do know that a lot of people like to just say I'm on the
Yeah.
board, or put it on their resume or their LinkedIn profile, I'm on a board member of, but really what you're looking for is people who
Yeah.
will actually help. And that's the expectation too. What else when considering the non-for-profit area?
Well, if you want to start a nonprofit and you want to have volunteers, well, you probably will have volunteers. Make sure that because as much as there's some bad people out there that just want to take, there's some people that are amazing and they are willing to give. So be okay to provide them with something in return. That doesn't have to be money, but mentorship. I mentor a lot of our volunteers. And one thing that I like to do, and I think everybody should do, is include, like in our case, we have students. I call them students. They come in our programs. When they're done in the program, I invite them to come part of the committee to help me plan the program so they can give me insights into how I can make the program better. Who can give you better research than your market, right? So I invite so the student, they're still in high school and they come in the committee, and we meet with them once a month, and I give them guidance and they get to create. But not only it gives me something because I don't want to be selfish, but also it gives them a portfolio where they say, I have done this while I was in high school, and supporting me. It supports them to get a job after, right? So the organization, and I think everyone should create nonprofits this way. You're not just supporting the participants or the so-called client, but the volunteer that come in and they're doing great work, they should be supported as well. So I like to support my volunteers with, sometimes I give them mentorship. You be ready to be a reference for them, because if they're willing to do so much for you, you should do something for them too. Like it has to be really super important, Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that way of thinking too, because even if you're just looking to volunteer, it's sort of, you look at it from like, well, I'm going to give to this.
Right.
I mean, a lot of it is probably just fulfilling your purpose, but there's also this opportunity where, it's not really give and take, but it's like, what are you going to get out of it? And if it makes you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose as well.
So they, like, for me, what I feel like they giving something, but I want them to take something. I believe in karma thing. So it's like, if people give me something, I want to give them something too in return. It might not be, it should be something that they need. You know what I mean? As in like a reference, or, build a portfolio. I actually encourage everyone that comes in to be part of committees or things to say, put your name on this, and you can take it as your portfolio. Use that for your job interview. Use that to put it on your portfolio, whatever you do with it, to help you to the next step. So it's super important, right?
Yeah. So how do you keep yourself going? I mean, I know there's been some times where you've thought to yourself, oh my God, I'm going to give up and just go get a full-time job, Lynette, because leading a non-for-profit isn't the most profitable for your bank account either. So how do you keep yourself going?
It's the success that I see in the participants. See them, like, I mean, when I get a message from them and say, I got this scholarship, I got accepted, at this I got accepted in the program that I wanted to, at the university that I wanted to go to. And it's because of you this happened. When I see young women start their own initiatives, and when they come back and say, if there's anything I can do, let me know, because I want to support this program. I don't want this program to stop. When I get a letter for, like, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, it's like, I do have times when I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I have had job offers that would pay me a lot more than what I got here. And then I would just feel like, but I can't let them down. And I also have 2 daughters, right? And I want them to see that if you have a purpose, if you want to do something, go ahead and fulfill that purpose. But also, I want them to have opportunities too. So I don't want to be that selfish. It's not just for me. It's also for them. It's also for the girls, So
And I think you're leading a really great example of what it takes to really, like, the tenacity. I mean, we've heard it a million times, you know, what you see that looks super successful in a short period of time is underneath the
Yes,
water has been 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears and crying and
yes.
fighting for this and fighting for that. And so now you're starting to really reap the
You know, you
benefits of
saying
it.
this, I
And
actually
that's,
get people and ask me, how does it feel to be successful? And I said, I don't know, because I'm not. I don't know. I'm not, I don't think of me as successful. I didn't reach that goal yet. And I said, people that say that they're successful, they're done. I feel like you're done. Like, what do
yeah,
you do then? You know, so I don't want to think I'm
exactly.
successful. I still think a lot of work
I would
on
say
it.
you're successful, but what success isn't really a destination. It's just, it's
Yes,
something that just keeps going. That's how I
yeah,
kind of look at it. Tell me what's next for Hervolution. You've really, like, and there's a, I want to step back just a tiny second. So we talk a lot about the 10-year mark
yes.
where, you know, you've had a business and you keep nurturing that business, and you stay focused on that business for that 10-year time frame. Um, that you really, that's when you start to finally get the
Mhm.
momentum, you know, where you truly, you know, you've evolved your programming, you've evolved kind of your strategies and your boards and how you're structured. What's next? What's the next 10 years look like?
Actually, it's funny you say that because I have my conversation with the board is like, listen, we are going to celebrate 10 years and next year in February. So I said, we are preparing for the overnight success that took 10 years to happen.
Yes,
So this is what we're
exactly.
doing. Preparing for the overnight success that took 10 years to happen. Actually, with Revolution working on going across Ontario, I mean, what the pandemic has taught us, and something I wanted to do anyways. I said I wanted to take Revolution across Ontario. And realistically speaking, the way we're doing stuff before the pandemic in person, it would have been very, very, very hard. But what the pandemic taught me is that we can use technology to actually reach youth across Ontario. And so the goal is to really take over Ontario. Take over
Right.
Ontario.
But you also, sorry, you also told me though that the non-for-profits are very restricted in terms of the
Yes.
area that you can offer your, so tell us a
Well,
little bit about
so
that.
yeah, you have the federal nonprofits or charities, and you have the provincial. We are registered as a provincial organization, so
Okay.
I'm only allowed to do programming in Ontario. I cannot do programming outside of Ontario. We can have
Okay.
now
I
we can
see.
use
Okay.
the technology. The reason technology is beautiful, I think, is because we can work with someone that is from Vancouver to be a mentor to someone that is here in Ontario. So we can do that cross, you know.
But you can only offer the program to
Yes,
Ontario
yes,
residents. Okay, I see. I see. But you can draw on your mentorships and stuff from
yes,
across. Yeah, it's the irony of you talking about, you know, capitalizing on technology when
yes.
you know, the STEM. But you know, it's true. Like a lot of the time before COVID, we were all sort of, everything had to be done in
Right.
person, and you really like you didn't skip a beat.
Mm.
You just got right into it. Okay, we're going to offer this programming, and it's hard to offer that type of programming online because it can be 2 or 3 hours or 4 hour
Yeah,
days or even 8 hour days. And how do you keep somebody
it's
engaged
tough.
online? Yeah.
It's tough. Um, and we're still learning. This is the third year that we're going to offer this programming online, and we're still learning. And what I know for sure is that you never know everything. So just because you worked this year and you did it this way doesn't mean that next year is going to work. So to be prepared to just take a different route, have plan B, so to speak. You know, be
Yeah.
prepared for things
Yeah.
to not work and just see how we can make it better. And this is why actually I'm so happy that I thought of this idea. Why don't we bring the students to sit on our committee so that they can tell us, how can we do this for you? You know,
That's
how
right. I
can
really
you,
like that.
what can we do, you know, to make this better? What works for you? And then we ask a whole bunch of students. You should see how amazing they are oh my God, you think that you're talking to professionals, and, you know, I'm just like blown away. I get so excited when they sit in the meeting and I talk to them, and I'm just like, and that's what also keeps me going, you know, to see them, that they just come in and they just give you those opinions and they're willing to get their hands dirty, so to speak. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah, no, I love it. Hey, listen, so you have set an amazing example of somebody who came, against all odds, had a vision for herself, had her purpose clearly defined, set out to do the purpose, had no idea how you were going to do it, but did it and kept with perseverance, spreading the word, drawing on your community, and really sort of nurturing this purpose, this idea of yours. You've really started to flourish in what could have been, you hanging up a dream based on what one person said. Oh, well, sorry, we don't help poor people. Okay. So, congratulations to you. You are definitely an example for everybody out there that, success just keeps going. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can enjoy it while you're on that riding that wave. So I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your story. It's an amazing story. And for everybody that wants to sort of dig into a little bit deeper into VOLUTION and Doina, who is a brand in herself, where would they find you?
So for VOLUTION, you can check out the hervolution.org website. So we have everything there. And as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn or you can find me on Instagram, Doina Oncel. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and I will put the links to the show to those in the show notes. And so thank you so much for joining us, Doina. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I just want to continue my relationship with you. You're a wonderful
Thank
woman,
you.
So
how are you? Thank you, Lynette. I appreciate you giving me the space to share my story. Thank you.